Hello, everybody, and welcome to Life's Nuggets with Susan and Patricia. I am Patricia, and I'm a mindset coach.
And I'm Susan, a nutritionist.
So, today is part two of a series that we're doing all about self-love. What does that mean? And there's so many different ways of looking at self-love and so many things that come up on self-love. So, it
Mm.
just was too much. So that's why we're doing a few of them. And today, Susan, we're going to look at kind of that voice in our head, that inner critic, and how it shapes you,
Mm,
how you deal with life as a result of that critic, or that ways of doing it. So how can we rewrite the script? How can we become familiar with what that's saying to us and how that maybe is hurting us instead of helping us?
for sure. And I think one of the things is already recognizing, because I mean, we all have different thoughts going on in our head, right, all the time. And I think part of it is recognizing or learning to recognize sort of what you were saying, self-critic. What are the ones that are actually my thoughts and how I see and think and view things? And what are these voices that don't actually belong to me as a person, but belong to maybe family or friends that we often see or that maybe hold an important place in our lives? And we hear things over and over and we start to think that those are our thoughts, right? And I think it's probably very natural, right? You grow up in certain environments and you hear things, and obviously you pick things up from who you live with. I mean, that's kind of just a given, right? But I think it's learning to differentiate what is really yours and what you're doing that's been put on you from the outside and you don't realize.
I agree. And I would go a step further in saying not only is it important to recognize what is yours and what is somebody else's, but
Mm,
challenge what you think is yours.
mm,
Is that true?
yeah.
Right? Because for a lot of us, it's that bitch is in the head all the time that's
Gosh.
saying,
Yeah.
if you do it that way, people are going to judge you. If you don't follow the rules, you're going to be rejected.
This is
There's all these different things. And as a result of those things, people end up dealing with perfectionism. They struggle with people pleasing. They don't have any boundaries. Imposter syndrome is another one.
yeah.
Low
Well,
self-esteem. All
and
of
this,
those.
yeah, it comes back to that self-love, right? As you said, it's sort of, who am I? And are these, like we say, are these voices mine or not? And how, if I accept them and use them, what impact is that going to have on my relationships? Because they're not really me, right? I'm kind of mimicking somebody else. And if I use that, what impact is that going to have for me and the people around me? And I think the other thing to think of as well is once we've sort of realized that we have these voices, right? And we identify which ones are truly us and which ones aren't, it's choosing to let go of those. It's then figuring out, well, if I don't have those, who am I going to be? If I let go of those voices and I really truly embrace me, where's that going to leave me? And it's sort of like the devil you know and the devil you don't. Like, okay, I may not like some of these, but if I don't do this anymore, question mark, right? We functioned maybe for X amount of years like this, and it's sort of been okay, and life's fine, and work and kids and family, whatever. But where does that leave me with regards to other people? Like, how am I going to be perceived if I don't behave in those ways that people have always known me to? And they think that's who I am, but that's not, surprise, it's not me. Right?
It's such a difficult situation,
Yeah.
because we are all, a lot of what we're thinking, a lot of our inner thoughts are coming from a place of survival, of belonging.
Mhm.
Belonging is our
Huge.
number one need in the world. We want to feel connected and belong, even if it's a dysfunctional
Mm.
place. So we have learned from the time we are born that we need to behave a certain way. So we end up thinking a certain way because that's how we can belong. Maybe
Mm,
that's how we stay safe in our environment. That's
mm.
when we can be accepted in our environment. And so it's not even, for many of us, it's not even a thought process because that's just the way it always
Oh,
is.
this is it.
So
What?
challenging what's happening up here is really important to understand what did you learn to do and who are you really? It's huge.
Yeah, it's huge. And I mean, I remember I probably like a lot of people, you grew up in a dysfunctional family, a very messy divorce. And I remember, and it took me a long time until literally probably about 6 years ago, 6 months ago, is because it was very messy. There was a lot of backstabbing. There was a lot of like just not fun stuff. But they were always, my parents were always kind of twisting things a little bit, like facts, things that happened would be exaggerated or kind of like little white lies, right? So either to egg the other one on, to provoke, to hurt, to protect, whatever it is you want to call it. And you don't realize it as a kid, right? You grow up, kind of what we're saying, right? You grow up, you hear it, you see it around you, you leave home, you go into the real world. And it's not something that I was aware that I would do a lot. Like it really wasn't, but it was more in terms of sort of important relationships. If suddenly I felt something was not even wrong, there was a disagreement, an argument, or something had happened, I thought, I don't want my partner, whatever, to quite fully know, because if they do, what's their reaction going to be? And unconsciously, for a very long time, I used to twist it just a smidge, right? Nothing major, but just, and it took me, and yeah, to understand the reason I was doing it wasn't because it's something that felt good for me. Because every time I would do it, it niggled, right? I didn't feel quite comfortable, but it was just like, so what we're saying, this is who I know I am. That's what I'm going to do, right? Because if I don't do that, I'm not sure what that person's reaction to me is going to be. So I'm just going to protect myself, right? And I think, as you said, it's a question of survival. If this is a difficult situation, I need to get through it. How am I going to get through it? This is what I'm going to do, right? But in realizing that it wasn't specifically who I was, it didn't sit well with me, it was such a relief, Patricia. I was like, oh my goodness, okay, I don't actually like doing that at all. Like it really just doesn't sit well with me. But it took me a long time to realize that the reason I was doing it was because essentially that's what I'd grown up, that had been my example,
Yeah.
right?
There's
And
also a thing about loyalty.
yeah,
We have this unconscious loyalty to our family. And it comes back
oh
to that place of belonging.
yeah,
So, we don't even think about it. What you're explaining
no,
is not even probably a thought process because that's how you
no,
communicate it in your family.
yeah.
And so should you do,
Wasn't a lot, but yes, when we did, that's what it was like. And this is it, right? Yeah. Communication is key, and it's something it's taken a long time to learn, right? And it's
if
so
you do something different, then you're being disloyal to the family. And now where is my place in the family if I'm no longer doing it that way? I actually risk losing that belonging, that connection. It's a really, really scary place to be.
oh,
Um,
it wasn't fun, I have to admit. It really wasn't. But I think it really does tie into that sort of self-love and understanding who you are. It's like, okay, well, I don't want to do that. Like I haven't, it's not something I've been doing for a long time, but it was the understanding of it. It was like, oh my God, it was literally, Patricia, it was a light bulb moment. I was just, sometimes you walk and you go through things, and I was looking, thinking of different situations, and suddenly I was like, hang on a second. Like, no, this isn't who I am. I didn't do this because yes, I want to do it because that's what I was taught to do, but it was not my own choice. Had it just been me with none of those little voices around, that's not what I would have said or done in those situations, right?
Right.
And when you suddenly have that moment, you're like, wow, what a relief. Scary, but a relief, because you're like, okay, well, I can let that go. Like that doesn't belong to me anymore.
yeah. And you're absolutely describing, the process of self-love, right? And understanding who you are is such an integral part of self-love. and,
Mm.
in loving yourself regardless of what you're doing, of, the good and the bad. And I think a good big piece on this is giving yourself compassion for what was.
This is it. And not saying I
And
should have done it differently. It's like, look, that was the environment. This is what happened, and we are all, nobody's perfect. We're all flawed. We all have issues, no matter how much social media and Instagram and all that want us to think, people have these perfect lifestyles. I'm like, I think we're old enough now, Patricia, to go, big pinch of salt on that one, but
I don't
right.
think so.
Do you
Yeah.
see what I mean? So, and I think once you also, again, I think unfortunately it does come with age, but I think some people do figure this out a lot earlier. I'd hope so for them. But yeah, it really does come back down to that self-love and then knowing who you are and understanding that it happened, that you can't change it, you have to accept it, but then you have a choice to move on in a way that feels true to you,
Yeah.
right?
I
and
100% agree.
and that just when you do those things, it actually sits really well with you and you're like, yep, that's okay, even if it was difficult, even if you didn't like that situation or it was hard to have a conversation, but when you come out the other side and the dust has settled, you're okay, content. I don't know if that's the right word, but you're okay with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I've heard people say, I'm really angry with myself, or
Mm.
this and this and this about our past. And the way I look at it is, we are where we are today as a result of your
So
past.
this is it.
Having that journey is so important. Now, do I wish things had been different? Sure, hell yes. But
Here today,
I
talking with
love,
you
yeah, I love the person that I have become, and I couldn't have become those things
about that
with
happening.
that experience.
Yeah.
And so we really need to, again, just take a look at it and go, I look back and it's like, if that hadn't happened and that hadn't happened and that hadn't happened, even though all our crappy experiences, um, I wouldn't be here today.
This is
So,
it.
so you got to have compassion for yourself. We're all going to make mistakes today, going forward. We do the very best we can with what we know. And when we know better, we can do better, but we have to give ourselves compassion for where we are today. And the more we, really challenge what that voice is saying and what's happening,
Mm.
the more, like you said, you can let it go and you can then step into your authentic self. And that can be a scary thing because when I let go of the role that I thought I was supposed to be in,
Who does that make me?
who does that make me? And how do I fit into my relationship, my family, my friends, all that sort of stuff? Um, but the upside to that is that, settling into who you really are is just such a depth of emotion, and it brings you so much. And those that really love you are still going to be there.
Yeah. And I think what it really does is from personally, it grounds you. Like, Joey, I'm not saying that you're unflappable and you're not bulletproof. No, but it means that if things happen, if crappy things happen, which of course they're going to happen again, but it's not going to affect you in the same way. You're going to come out of it in a better place. The journey is still not going to be fun, right?
No, it's
Um,
brilliant.
but this is it. But you will still come out of it in a better place than if you hadn't done that work and realized it. And I think that nature's very clever. These things don't, I think, happen overnight, right? Thank God. But do you know what I mean? It's a process. You kind of start thinking about things. You have a moment. You're cleaning, you're working. I don't know what it is you do, and you start thinking sometimes about certain things. You're like, really? And it's not like you suddenly change, but I think internally there's a certain physical and emotional stress that you can literally just let go of and go, you know what, I just don't need that anymore. Like that's just not who I am. And if those people don't like it, then there's not much I can do about it, right? But that's just not who I want to be anymore.
No, and as they say, you know, some people are there for a short time in your life and some people there for a long time in your
Yeah,
life. And, you know, you just need to appreciate people for where they are and where you are right now. And if you have to leave them behind, you know,
and
it's
sometimes.
like you, who's more important? So you got to really pay attention to that.
Yeah,
So
100%.
okay, that was really great. Such an important topic about learning the process of self-love and challenging what's happening in your head. So we hope you guys that resonated in some way.
It can help people who are, this is why we're doing this, right? If somebody is kind of, or they're not even aware that they're dealing with it, and then suddenly it kind of starts them thinking, brilliant. Like that's really all we want, right? Is just to support and help and maybe let people know that they're not on their own if they are dealing with that kind of thing, right? Because I think a lot
Um,
of people do have to deal with it, whether we want to or not, it's there.
it is there, and you know, you're so not alone. There are so many people
Yeah,
out.
that
So if
doing
you
this.
have any comments or if you want to let us know where you're at in this journey, we'd love to hear it in the comments below. If you have any other ideas on what it is that you like topics, we'd love to hear that as well. This is a series, so this is part 2, and stay tuned for part 3 of our series.
100%.
All right, have a great day, everybody. Bye.